Get the hell out of my company, Maya, and be grateful I let you stay this long. His words hit harder than the security guard's hand on her elbow. The Christmas tree in the lobby blinked red and green behind him, but his face was ice. "Mr. Camden," she said, her throat dry. "You said my battery design would push us ahead of Tesla. You said." He finally looked up from his glass desk, a slow, lazy smile on his lips. "It will push us ahead," he said. "Just not with you. We're restructuring. You're not part of our future. People like you never really are." Her stomach dropped. "People like me," she whispered. "Black girls from public schools with no last name anyone knows," he said, standing, fixing his cufflinks like she was dust on his sleeve. "I gave you a seat at a table you were never meant to sit at. Don't confuse that with ownership." Maya's hands shook. "I worked for that seat," she said. "I earned it." "No," Richard said softly. "You served for it. Big difference." The guard stepped closer, holding a cardboard box. "Please," Maya said, voice breaking now, "my mom is sick. We need the insurance. You promised my name would be on the patent." Richard let out a short, cruel laugh. "You really thought I'd put a black woman's name on the core tech?" he asked. "Investors like clean stories, clean faces. You were useful, that's all." She felt the room tilt. "You used me," she whispered. "That's business," he said. "Now, leave with what little pride you've got." When she did not move, he stepped in close, hissed, "Stop begging. It's pathetic," and shoved her shoulder so hard she stumbled, her knees slamming the floor. The guard winced but did not help. Maya forced herself up, cheeks burning, blood hot in her ears. She took the box with numb hands, walked past blinking lights and fake gold bows, and stepped out into the cold, dark New Jersey night. A black woman fired on Christmas Eve, by the billionaire whose name glowed at the top of the building. She had helped power. The hospital smelled like bleach and old coffee, and the hall TV played soft holiday songs that made everything worse. Maya sat by her mother's bed, face still swollen, the cheap scarf hiding the bruise on her cheek. "Baby, they let you go," her mother Lois said quietly, reading the truth in her eyes. Maya nodded and tried to smile, but it fell apart, and soon she was crying into the thin blanket like a child. "He took my work," Maya choked. "He said my name would never be on anything. He said, investors don't want people like me." Lois's fingers, thin from long months of chemo, squeezed her hand with more strength than her body seemed to hold. "Listen to me," she said. "Men like that don't own your future. They just rent your time, and rent comes due." But the bills did not wait for justice. When the company cut her off, the good insurance ended. The doctor's words turned careful. "Without coverage, we can't keep the full treatment plan," he said. "We can manage pain. We can keep her comfortable." Comfortable became the cruelest word Maya had ever heard. She picked up extra shifts at a cheap diner, pouring coffee for men in nice suits who talked loudly about disruption and stock splits. Words that made her think of Richard until her hands shook. At night, she sat at the tiny kitchen table, her mother asleep in the next room, the last copy of her design locked on a little silver flash drive in her pocket. She wrote out everything she remembered: dates, meetings, lies, how Richard had praised her, promised her name on the patent, then kicked her out like trash. Weeks later, on a gray Tuesday, Lois slipped away while the sun was still trying to rise. Her last words were barely a breath. "Don't disappear, Maya." At the grave, cold dirt under her boots. Maya pressed the flash drive into her palm until it hurt and made a silent promise. She would not disappear. She would learn the game that had broken them. The first office she worked in, after the diner, was nothing like the glass tower she had left. It sat above a laundromat in Brooklyn, the whole place buzzing and smelling like burnt coffee and printer ink. The sign on the door said Family Finance and Estate. But really the firm helped broke families clean up money after death and bad luck. It paid just enough, and, more important, it gave her a window into how money moved on paper. "You're fast," said Greg, the tired CPA, who tossed thick folders on her desk. "You're sure you've never done this work before?" Maya just shrugged and kept her head down. At night, after the office closed, she stayed late, watching online videos about stocks, company filings, and what really happened in boardrooms. She found Camden Energy's name again and again, glowing in big letters in news articles, praised for vision and smart bets. Each time she saw Richard's smiling face, something hard and cold grew inside her. One night her younger brother, Elijah, came to visit, dropping onto the chair across from her with a sigh. "Sis, what are you doing with all these reports?" he asked, glancing at the piles of notes. "I thought you'd sue him, or go to the news." Maya shook her head. "He has money, lawyers, friends in high places," she said. "I have a bad work record and a dead mom. If I scream now, they call me bitter. If I learn how this system works, one day I can break it from inside." Elijah chewed his lip. "That sounds slow." "It's not slow," she said softly. "It's steady." That winter, she opened a secret file on her old laptop and typed a name at the top, Cinder. Under it, she listed every board member at Camden, every bank mentioned in their reports, every change in their debt. The more she read, the more she saw small cracks, like a house that looked strong from the street but creaked in the wind. The next year she moved up to a better firm in Manhattan that handled rich people's portfolios. There, she learned about shell companies, trusts, and how folks hid power with friendly smiles and fake names. It was in that slick midtown office, with its glass walls and fancy coffee machine, that Maya took her first quiet step back toward the man who had ruined her life. She sat at a spare desk late one Friday, a simple black blazer over the same thrift store dress she had worn for months, clicking through Camden's public filings. The company looked strong at a glance, but she could see what others did not. The research numbers were too low, the profits too smooth, like makeup hiding a bruise. "You're always staring at that stock," said Stephanie, her sharp-eyed manager, as she passed. "You holding any?" "Not yet," Maya said. That night, in her small place in Brooklyn, she opened a new account in a plain-sounding name and bought her first tiny slice of Camden stock. It was less than some people spent on shoes, but as she watched the order fill, her heart raced. "You just bought a piece of his house," Elijah said on the phone, half amazed, half scared. "A crumb," she said. "But crumbs can make a trail." Month after month, she bought a little more. Always under different small firms, she quietly formed on her laptop, Everwell Capital, Garden Street Holdings, simple names that did not draw eyes. She never bought enough at once to show up in news. While numbers grew, so did something else, whispers. At a tech conference in Vegas, where she went with her firm to watch speakers talk about the future, she heard his laugh before she saw him. Richard stood at the front of the room, thin gray suit, white teeth, telling a crowd how he built from nothing. When people clapped, her fingers dug into her notebook. He did not see her, and that was when she realized her greatest weapon was his blindness. To him, she was gone. A month later, she got a call from a blocked number while riding the subway home. "Is this Maya Williams?" a woman's voice asked, shaky but clear. "Who's this?" Maya said, gripping the pole. "My name is Linda. I used to be Mr. Camden's assistant," the woman said. "I saw what he did to you. I have something you should see." That call was the start of the twist Maya never saw coming, the one that would change her quiet plan into a storm. They met in a small coffee shop in Queens, the kind with chipped mugs and old pop songs playing too loud. Linda looked older than Maya remembered from those fast years in the lab, her hair streaked with gray, worry lines deep around her eyes. She slid a thick envelope across the table with hands that trembled. "After he fired you, he made me clean up," Linda said, voice low. You thought I was loyal? I saved copies. Inside the envelope were printed emails, meeting notes, and early drafts of the patent filing for the battery design, all with timestamps that showed Maya's name as the creator before it vanished from later versions. Near the back lay something else, something that made Maya's heart pound in her ears. A report from a federal agency flagging a private deal where Camden had used her battery tech in a side contract to help power small drones for a defense supplier, then quietly hid the income from both the board and the government. He used your design to build secret weapons and lied about the money, Linda said. If this comes out, it's not just theft, it's a crime. Maya sat very still, the shop noise fading. She had wanted payback, a chance to stand in his office again and make him choke on her name. She had never imagined handcuffs. Why now? She asked. Linda stared into her coffee. I was afraid. Then I saw your little press note about Everwell buying clean energy stocks. I knew that was you. My son is your age. I don't want him to see me as someone who stayed silent forever. 4 days after, Maya barely slept. She spread the papers on her kitchen table, the flash drive next to them like a tiny beating heart. The path was clear now. Not only could she buy into his company, she could also bring the law to his door. The story was bigger than a stolen name. It was a lie told to a whole country. One night she looked out the window at the city lights and whispered, "Okay, Mom, I'll take it all the way." The next years moved fast and hard, like a river after a storm. With Linda's proof locked in a safe and copies with a lawyer who worked on whistleblower cases, Maya stopped thinking small. She turned Everwell from a shell into a real firm on paper, pulled Elijah in full time to build quiet software that tracked every move Camden stock made during the day. She met with one older investor, Mr. Malone from Detroit, who had lost money when Richard lied on a past deal. Sitting across from him, in a worn leather chair, she laid it out in simple, blunt words. "I'm not asking you to save me," she said. "I'm offering you a chance to help me take him down the right way." He studied her for a long moment, then laughed once. "You remind me of every man who ever told me no, and every woman who ever proved them wrong," he said. "I'm in." With his help and a few small funds run by people who believed her, she pushed her quiet holdings to almost 20%. That was when Richard finally noticed. First came the lawyer letters, thin white paper full of long words that tried to paint her as a hostile actor. Maya smiled, because if he was calling her that, it meant she'd finally reached his nerves. Then she went public, but on her terms. She held a small meeting with local reporters in a rented room in Newark, the same city where she once cried in a hospital hallway. With Linda at her side, she told the story in plain language, how she built the battery, how he stole the credit, how he hit her and threw her out on Christmas Eve, how she buried her pain, learned the game, and bought into the company that had tried to erase her. "I'm not here to make noise," she said into the cameras. "I'm here to claim my seat." A week later, an audio clip leaked of Richard in a private meeting, calling her a maid who got lucky and laughing that no one cares what some black girl says. The clip flew across social media faster than anything she could have planned. Stocks dipped. Former staff from Camden began sending her messages in the night, saying, "We believe you. Tell us what to do." The ground under Richard's feet had finally started to shake. Pressure turned to fire when Maya made her next move, using the shares she'd gathered through Everwell and the other small firms. She filed for a big shareholder vote that would force Camden's board to let her in. Old men in suits went red in the face on cable news, calling her ungrateful and dangerous, but every time they said her name, more regular people heard it and searched her story. Inside Camden Tower, board members held long, tense calls where they argued about whether a woman he'd once fired could really sit beside them now. In the middle of all this, an email hit Maya's inbox from a government address. They had seen Linda's files. They wanted to talk about the hidden drone deals, sitting in a small windowless room with 2 federal agents. Maya told the truth from start to finish, hand steady, voice even. When they asked if she would testify if it ever went to court, she said yes without pause. "But I'm not doing this just to watch him fall," she added. "I'm doing it so people like him think twice before they steal from the next black girl who dares to be smart." The day of the board vote. She walked into Camden Tower in a dark blue suit, Elijah at her side, heart pounding but feet steady. Some workers stared with wide eyes, whispering her name like a story they'd heard but never thought was real. In the boardroom, Richard's smile looked stretched, his eyes cold. "You really think owning some scraps means you belong here?" he sneered. Maya didn't rise to the bait. "We'll see what the numbers say," she said. When the vote ended, the screen on the wall showed it clear. Enough shares backed her demand. The board had to give her a seat. As she walked to the empty chair, the same kind of high-backed leather seat where he had once leaned over her, she remembered the cold floor under her knees, the way his office smelled of power and cruelty. Now, she sat down at his table and folded her hands, and the room itself seemed to shift. Once inside, she did not waste time. Her first order as a new director was simple: full audit, she said. Every deal from the last 10 years, every side contract, every big cash move. Some members squirmed, but the vote passed. The company's own lawyers, now scared of losing their licenses, brought in outside people to dig. What they found matched Linda's papers, and then went further. More hidden money, more secret defense work, and lies on official forms that could send people to jail. One thin folder came back with a red stamp from a federal office, and Maya knew what it meant. The government was moving. When word reached Richard, he exploded. He tried to call her late one night, voice raging through the phone. "You think you own this place now?" he shouted. "You're going to break everything I built." She listened, then said calmly, "You built it on my stolen work and other people's fear. If it breaks, that's on you." Weeks later, she sat in a courtroom in a plain black dress, no jewelry, watching him take his place at the defense table as the United States read charges against him: fraud, lying to investors, hiding war work. Each word was like a slow drum beat. When it was her turn on the stand, the room went so quiet she could hear her own breath. "Tell us what happened 10 years ago," the lawyer said. She told them, in simple words, about the Christmas tree. The promises, the shove, the firing, the loss of her mother, the long hours learning a game built to shut people like her out. "Did you come here today for revenge?" the lawyer asked. Maya looked at the jury, at the people sitting with notepads in their laps. "No," she said. "Revenge is when you hurt someone just to feel better. I came here so what he did to me and others has real cost. I came so the next girl doesn't have to spend 10 years cleaning up a mess she didn't make." Somewhere in the back row, she thought she heard someone sniff and wipe away a tear. The verdict came on a Thursday morning that smelled like rain and hot street pretzels outside the courthouse. Guilty on all major counts. The judge's voice was firm as he read the years, more than 2 decades behind bars, with a chance at parole far down the road. Richard stood there, the same man who once thought he was untouchable, now a small shape in a suit that didn't seem to fit anymore. He did not turn to look at her when they took him away in handcuffs, but Maya did not need him to. She had already seen what she came to see, a system that, for once, reached up instead of only down. After the trial, reporters crowded her, shouting questions. "How does it feel to watch the man who fired you go to prison? Are you happy now?" She raised a hand, and the noise dipped. "Nothing gives me back my mother," she said. "Nothing gives back the years I spent thinking I was nothing. But today, a door opened for every person who's been stepped on and told to be quiet." Back at the tower, now carrying a new plaque with her name at the top, she called a full staff meeting in the big open lobby. People from every floor came, from janitors to top engineers, curious and nervous. "We are not Camden Energy anymore," she said. "We are Williams Future Systems. And this building doesn't belong to one man's ego. It belongs to the people who work here and the communities we serve." She rolled out simple changes with big meaning. Clear lines to report abuse without fear. Fair credit on patents, paid time off for sick family, a training program for kids from public schools who loved science but had never seen the inside of a lab. In the months that followed, profits dipped, then rose higher than before, this time built on clean books and honest deals. When an older board member grumbled that she was too soft, she pointed to the numbers and said, "Integrity is good business." 10 years to the day after that cold Christmas Eve, Maya stood in front of a group of girls at a rec center in Newark, not far from the apartment where she once cried over shut-off notices and hospital bills. The room smelled like markers and pizza, laptops open on folding tables, wires running everywhere. On the wall behind her was a poster with her face on it. The headline read, "From Fired to Founder." It still made her laugh. "So," she said, clapping her hands once, "who here has ever been told they don't belong in a room?" Almost every hand went up. "Good," she said. "Then you already know what it feels like to stand on the outside. Let me tell you a secret. The outside is where you see the cracks. And if you can see the cracks, you can change the whole building." One girl with tight braids and sharp eyes asked, "Weren't you scared to go against a billionaire?" Maya smiled. "Terrified," she said. "I cried. I shook. I thought I would lose. But I was more scared of living my whole life knowing I stayed on my knees when I should have stood up." After the workshop, as kids packed up their things, Elijah walked in, wearing a hoodie with the company's new logo. "Board meeting in an hour, boss," he joked. "The future won't build itself." She rolled her eyes, but her heart felt full. On the drive back to the city, she stopped by the small grave where her mother lay. She laid fresh flowers, brushed snow from the name, and told her everything. The board seat, the new programs, the girls with bright eyes and big dreams. "You told me not to disappear," she said softly. "I didn't. And now there are a lot of us." As the wind moved through the trees, she felt something like a warm hand on her back, pushing her forward. That night, in her office, high over the city sky, she wrote a single line on the whiteboard above her desk. "A truth earned the hardest way. Real power is not how loud you shout, but how long you stand your ground for what is right."